Okay, so we're ready for the first step. What you want to do is to first find a dark crayon, and the one that I'm going to use is green. You could use purple, you could use blue, you could even use black if you wanted to, but it should be a darker color because you'll be able to really see the lines that you make if you use a dark color. And you're just going to make some squiggly lines to start off with. You can draw the squiggly, the squiggly lines anywhere on your paper that you want to. So I'm just going to keep drawing some squiggly lines. I'm going to pause this for a second so you can see how this is going to happen. Okay, so there's some of my squiggly lines. If you want to, you could make those squiggly lines into some shapes. So if you wanted to start making some of them into shapes, some of the ways that you could do that would be to close up some of the squiggly lines to make new shapes, like there, or like there, or this is kind of tricky, or like here. And that way you have some areas that you're going to be able to fill in really well. So the next part that you're going to do with the crayon is then to get a new color. So let me get a new color and then I'll show you the next step. Okay, so I've got some purple crayon here and I'm going to make some different kinds of shapes inside of my first shapes. Now most of the shapes that I'm making are something that we call organic shapes, which means that they're not any shapes that have straight lines. They're shapes that are always curved lines. So right now I have some circles. I'm going to draw a few other kinds of organic shapes, sort of looking like a pea pod, a couple of ovals here. Maybe I sort of like to put them, and you don't have to do this, but I like to put them inside of places that I think they kind of fit. So I'm looking for some places that they can kind of fit into. There's some of my organic shapes. Okay, now you can do a little more of these organic shapes or less of those organic shapes. I kind of like to make them. It's fun for me, but if you wanted to just do a few of them, you don't have to do as many as I'm doing. That's totally fine. You can put them anywhere that you want. The next step is to kind of color those different shapes in. Now, you don't have to use the same color. I'm actually going to trade off now. I used purple for these shapes. I'm going to use a different color for the inside of my shapes. Okay, so I picked out a few different colors to fill in my shapes. You can see I've got magenta, I've got two colors of green, a light green and a dark green. I've got orange and I've got some blue over here. So I'm going to start with my blue. And I'm just going to use it to color in some of my shapes a little bit more. And that's going to take me a little while. If you want to do more coloring or less coloring, it's totally up to you. I'm going to do that for a little bit and show you what I've done. Oops. Okay, so I'm really enjoying coloring these different shapes in. So far I've used orange and purple, and I'm just deciding where I want to put those colors in my different organic shapes and deciding where they kind of balance out, where they look good. And whatever you did to make shapes, you want to make sure that all of those shapes are colored in. And then after you've done that part, you could add some more colors if you wanted to. In fact, one of the interesting things about the Aboriginal artwork is that it has a lot of little dots that make even more patterns. So one way that you could make those kinds of little dots if you wanted to is to just make little speckles of dots like this. Whoa. And they can be different colors. They don't have to be all the same. It's kind of just fun to play around with. making those marks in different places. Now I am just going to do a few more dots. Another thing that you can do is if you wanted to put some very specific crayon colors into some of your shapes, you could do that too. So I'm going to switch around my colors now. I've got a lot of cool colors here and some warm colors, so I want to contrast them. When I say contrast, you can contrast things with darks and lights, or you can contrast things with opposite colors. So if you have orange, like right here, you might want to put some blue around it because that will give you contrast. When you've got green, you might want to use some red. That also creates contrast. So I'm going to try some of that just with my crayon because it's kind of neat to do this first step like that. So I'm just going to color in some of these areas with contrasting colors. And you don't have to totally color in anything. You might want to just make some new types of shapes around your first shapes. Just have fun with it. You want to just kind of be playful with it. This is a very abstract drawing. And abstract means that we don't see anything that we recognize. You just recognize the colors and the shapes. Oops. Okay, one more area. Okay. So I'm going to stop with those blues. I think I'm going to switch for another color now. Okay, I'm going to use some of this light green now because I think it's a nice contrasting color with the magenta that I was using earlier. Now, you might be someone that really likes to color things in, or you might be somebody that doesn't like to color so much, so it's really up to you. You can change things by just making more shapes if you like to do that instead, or if you're really into making the patterns, you can make more patterns. But if you are somebody that likes to color, which is like me, I like color a lot, you can add more color. And it's the more crayon that you use, so the crayon is going to act as what we call a resist. So the more crayon that you put on here, the more that you will see kind of push away from our next step. So the more of these different colors you put in with the crayon, the more contrast you'll get with the next step too. So it's really up to you how much you want to do. As you can see with my example here, the crayon that I used was a little bit less than what I did in this one that I'm working on now, because this is crayon, the lines are crayon, some of my dots are crayon, and then my background area is all with marker. That is going to be the next part of it. So you don't have to do the entire thing with crayon in color. You can stop here. You can add more color with crayon if you want to. Just do as much as you want to. Okay, and now I'm going to stop this part and I will let you see the next step video whenever you're ready.